He's got 12 months left. I think that's probably the time he will go.
Ivan Toney isn't ruling out a January transfer move away from Brentford. The striker is, of course, allowed to play again after serving an 8-month ban for breaking gambling rules. Toney has been linked with a number of Premier League clubs and has told Sky Sports News he has ambitions to play for a side who are competing for trophies.
Does that mean that maybe one day there'll be a right time to move on from Brentford, but this January is not that right time?
Well, I don't know. You can never predict when's the right time to move elsewhere. But I mean, it's obvious that I'd like to play for a top club. Everybody wants to play for the top clubs, fighting for titles and these kind of things. So whether it's this January, the right time was to be, a club was to come in and pay the right money, who knows? But my main focus is doing what I do on the pitch and let the background work take care of itself.
Does that mean that...
I don't have any problem with Ivan Toney wanting to play for a bigger club. I don't have any problem with anybody having any ambition, right? That's what it's all about, progress.
You sound like someone who's about to have a problem.
I'm going to have a pop at him. I'm going to have a pop at him because I think to sit there in an interview a few days after your manager has just told everybody that there's very little chance, basically that there's no chance of you leaving during this window, to sit there and spark the fire again by essentially saying, no, you never know when the right time is to move. I think it's just downright disrespectful to Brentford as a football club. Ivan Toney got himself into the situation that he's been in over the last 8 months. Now, it is an illness, unfortunately. It is an addiction, and I've got so much sympathy for that because people very close to me have had a similar problem over the years. But Brentford stuck by Ivan Toney. Brentford, didn't make a big thing of it. They were really supportive of him. They're obviously making a big deal of his comeback. Now, it works for Brentford too, because to have Ivan Toney back improves their team, and they're in a bit of a bad situation at this moment in time. But I just think his wording there is all wrong. And I go back to when the ban was first put out, and he did a podcast as well, and I listened to him in depth there, and I didn't think he came across well then either. I think somebody needs to pull Ivan Toney in and say, you got to be a bit careful about the words you put out. We've seen social media videos of him disrespecting the club as well. If I were a Brentford fan, I'd be looking at it and going, we kind of need you now, but come the summer, I probably would move you on because it's clear that your heart's not here.
See, I actually think that the Brentford fans are almost at ease with the situation. Thomas Frank seems to be at ease with the situation as well. Now, Brentford have always sold well in the Championship and had to rebuild when star players have left. They've had a list of really good players that ended up leaving for huge profit. Ivan Toney's probably going to go down as Brentford's best ever player, arguably, just for the fact that he led them to their highest ever finish last season in the Premier League. I think they finished 9th, it was, in the end. I take your point that sometimes his wording isn't brilliant, but I don't think he's the only footballer in the world that maybe is sometimes a little bit too honest and sometimes doesn't think fully about what they're saying. But I think there's an acceptance at Brentford that Ivan Toney...
But that's because of the club that Brentford are, with all due respect, right? It's not because they think that, Ivan Toney's... Well, you could say he's paid his dues. He's been at the club for a long time. He's helped them get into the Premier League and all the rest of it. But I think that acceptance that you mentioned, which I agree is there, comes from the fact that Brentford fans are just realistic about the size of their club, how long their club can hold on to an asset of that value, and the fact that ultimately they will need to do a deal of high value for someone because those players don't come along very often.
He's a confident guy that backs himself. I think if he was to have been interviewed when he was at Peterborough, if he was to have been interviewed when he wasn't doing anything at Newcastle at the start of his career, I don't think his tone or attitude would be massively different to what it is now. I think he's a confident guy that ultimately backs himself to perform and play at the highest level. He's made it clear that he's got ambitions. All the Brentford fans care about is when he's got that Brentford shirt on, is he playing to the best of his ability? Is he sticking the ball in the back of the net? And really, last season, 20 goals. I think it was 20 in 33 games, possibly. He's done that, hasn't he? So I just think the Brentford fans, that you're right, it's a different type of club, isn't it? If this was a player at a club me or you supported, Villa and Arsenal, the fans would be up in arms about it. But for Brentford, they've come so far in such a short space of time, and they know that he's going to leave at some point. But at the moment, he's the difference between them having a comfortable mid-table season or being involved in a relegation battle. And if he's fully fit for the entirety of the second half of this season, I think he'll get double figures and Brentford will be comfortable. And I think at the end of the day, the Brentford fans would wave him off with best wishes if that happens.
Yeah, I think they need him. And I think that's why people are going to keep quiet about these interviews. But I don't think they would have gone down well behind the scenes. Not because, people don't like him within the club or anything. If they didn't, they wouldn't have stuck by him, if they didn't believe in him and all the rest of it. But I just think some of the people within the club will be looking at some of the comments and cringing a little bit because it just feels a little bit unnecessary. His focus should be on getting back to playing football, and then you can try and push for that move that you want. I just don't think we're at the point where he should be discussing these matters just yet. I just don't see.
I feel like it's part of almost what makes him good. I think if he's not the way he is, I don't think he's as good a player, Ivan Toney.
Yeah, maybe not, but you can be that way without speaking in that way about the football. It's not about the football club, it's about his career, it's about his ambitions, and I get that. I just think that when Thomas Frank's been sitting there 2 days before, a guy who stood by you and telling everybody that you're staying, for you to then come out and give an interview that even suggests that might not be the case, I just think is ill-advised. But that's my opinion on it. I understand not everybody will agree.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.